Hello and welcome to the Ed Wood Summit podcast. I am your interim host, Joe Blevins, filling in for the late, great Greg Javer. This month marks what would have been the 101st birthday of Edward Davis Wood Jr. And in honor of that, we have a very special guest with us on the podcast today. Bob Blackburn is an author, musician, and radio industry veteran who has compiled 3 volumes of Ed Wood's magazine work, both nonfiction and fiction from the 1960s and 70s. He befriended Ed's widow, Kathy Wood, toward the end of her life, and along with attorney Bob Weinberg, is one of 2 heirs to Kathy's estate. He wrote about his friendship with Kathy in the 2024 memoir, Kathy Wood and I. Please join me in welcoming the very fabulous Bob Blackburn.
Well, thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. It's fine that we finally get a chance to actually talk together. And you have to forgive me. I had some oral surgery done
Oh,
a month or two ago that gave me a lisp, which I never had in my life until the dentist went in and installed a lisp. There you go. But I'll muddle through it just like
well,
Ed would muddle through it.
I assume you have more teeth in
Yeah,
your head than Ed Wood had in his head.
and,
Okay.
and Kathy also.
Yes. Oh, okay. So for the benefit of our listeners, I've compiled 5 questions for you, Bob. And I know
Thank you.
maybe you brought along with you as well. Do you have anything that you particularly want to show and tell? Do you have any
Yeah.
objects that you want to show? Well, why don't you
Yeah.
start with those? Why
Oh,
don't you
okay.
show us the things that you have to show us?
First of all, I have two of Ed's personal books from his own library with a little, I don't know if you can see it, but on there it says personal property inscribed 125 in Ed's own little scrawly handwriting that you would recognize. And let me take this out of the plastic covering. This is Ed's personal copy. We recently sold Bob Weinberg's book to help pay with his medical expenses.
Right.
And I'm sure this one, it's a little bit, you can tell that it's old. Just
Yes.
I
Has
can't
that
see myself in the screen right now, but you can see
right.
the browning of the paper. And I'm trying to do this very carefully so that I don't hurt anything. And I don't know if you can read that.
I can't. Well, I sort of can. I think it
It's
says from the Library of Edward,
a, a
something like
private,
that.
I think, private file of Edward D. Wood
Private file.
Jr.
Oh, okay.
I think June 30th, 1967, which this would have
Great.
been his own personal copy. I'm even kind of surprised that the publishers would send him even one copy,
Right.
just because, well, that's kind of how his life went, that, he would do all these things and really not end up with anything actually. But they did have a few of the paperbacks that Kathy loaned to Rudolph Gray, and we had to. Bob Weinberg had to write him a nice little letter asking for them back. He assumed that
Oh,
Kathy had gifted them to him, along with a sweater, which, since we're talking
wow.
show and tell, this is Ed's last Angora sweater.
It is in the collection of Bob Blackburn.
Yeah, and
That's
it
who
has a
has
couple
it.
little stains on it, but I can kind of understand Ed's attraction to Angora. It is super sensuous. I kind of hesitate to say that word. I might end up wanting to put it on after we're done doing this, but I
Oh,
have not.
you've never tried it on
No,
yourself.
and I really kind of don't want to. I don't want to stretch it out, even though Ed, at
Sure.
the time of his death, I'm sure was kind of husky. I just don't want to say to people that yeah, I wore it. I'd rather have it be Ed, the last person that actually wore it,
Right.
unless this was also loaned to Rudy. So I don't know if Rudy tried it on in the
I
privacy of his own room, or
possibly he could have.
it's
You never
very.
know.
I won't know, and I won't be talking to him anytime soon to find out either. So,
Oh, okay.
um, and this is not the original copy that Kathy had, but this is I woke up early the day I died script.
Right.
And I do have, it's not official, but it kind of is. It came from the company that made the film, of the DVD of I Woke Up Early, which I
Right.
will probably watch at some point this weekend. I didn't watch any of Ed's films yesterday to celebrate his 101st, though I did post the Beacon story in the
Yeah,
group for people to see.
Yeah, I thank you for sending that story on to me so I could review it. And I told you that it had an incredible coincidental connection to my life, and that my
Yeah,
grandparents actually owned a bar called the Beacon in northern Michigan. So,
I
um,
love that.
what a weird coincidence. Now, uh, for this interview, Bob, you have graciously agreed to answer five questions. Question number one: what is your special connection to Ed Wood?
It's through via Kathy. That's really it. I kind of knew who Ed was when I moved down here to Hollywood in 1989. If I hadn't have gone to that Ed Wood Festival that Johnny Legend and Eric Caden from Hollywood Book and Poster did in 1992, it was when Rudy's book came out. They kind of
Right,
did that to promote the book, and Rudy flew out from New York. And I had gone down to that. They rented this theater and were showing movies by cult movie directors that whole summer. And I'd been to one of the film screenings a week or two before. Had the flyer for the Ed Wood thing, and figured, sure, why not? $5, a whole day of worth of Ed Wood movies, plus all the people that were there. And that's when I saw the documentary with Kathy, and I've repeated this story a million times. It's my origin story.
right,
And so it was through that film festival that I kind of immersed myself in Ed visually. I mean, they had the commercials, they had the Remington commercial with Kenny Duncan, they had all the people there, Vampira, Paul Markov, Conrad Brooks, Valda Hansen was there talking in between a couple of the films. So, I heard from these people firsthand. And then after uh, finding out that Kathy actually was my neighbor, then I kind of went into the deep end, but gradually. I didn't dive into it. I kind of dipped my toes and let Kathy lead me into it. I didn't want to appear to be a fanboy to her
right,
because I wasn't, for one thing. And also because I really didn't, I didn't know her. I didn't know the whole Ed backstory. And I, let her over the course of the years that I knew her tell that story to me, that the parts that she felt most comfortable talking about. There were a few things that she left unsaid that she said she would tell me before she passed away, but she didn't. And I don't know what those are. I have my suspicions, but I won't even go into them. We'll do that on privately.
well, that leads me to my second question. What was Kathy Wood like to hang out with?
She was, the first word that popped to mind was bitty, like a little bitty. She was petite. She was about 5 foot nothing. She could get ornery at times, especially if she'd had a couple of glasses of wine and you said something that didn't agree with her, but she was generally friendly. She was very guarded. Um, she was funny. She was personable. Um, she loved movies. We went out and saw movies all the time, and
Right,
I didn't have any, I don't have a girlfriend down here in LA. I have some relatives that live in Orange County, which is a ways away. And I didn't have a whole lot of personal friends, just people I worked with and people in the music, rock and roll stuff that I saw. So Kathy was really my best friend. And so after I'd get off work, I'd come and hang out at her apartment, and we'd chat for an hour or so, and she'd talk about what she'd watched on TV, Judge Judy or whatever it would be. And then every so often she'd tell me stories about life with Ed or
hmm,
Eddie. She always called him Eddie,
right,
my Eddie. That was what
Maya.
it was. And she also would talk about her childhood growing up in Vancouver and her parents and an uncle that she had who helped build the house that they lived in on the outskirts of Vancouver, British Columbia. And she also talked about a car ride that she took down with her mother to San Diego to see her Aunt Mary, who Kathy, in her delusional kind of funny way, always thought that her Aunt Mary was her real mom because she was more wild. She was like the
Right,
wild flapper kind of girl. Um, so, but Kathy could get, she was still drinking her whole life, but she cut down as her stomach problems progressed over the latter years. So instead of drinking a full glass of wine, she would water it down a little bit, and eventually it became like a third of a glass of wine, and the rest would be water. And but she was always still sipping. I only saw her drunk a couple of times, to be honest with you, out of the 18 years, 19 years that I knew her. So she was a good pal, really was. And I know she would be pissed about me talking about her. That much I do know.
Well,
But hey,
when I read your book, Kathy Wood and I, how I fell down the Angora rabbit hole. It was something.
yeah, right. Yeah, no
It's a
problem.
long title, Bob.
I,
Um,
that's why I don't use it.
it felt to me like uh, when I would meet my father's sisters. My father came from a large family, so I had a lot of aunts on his side of
Right.
the family.
Mhm.
At weddings and family reunions, and holidays, you'd run into the aunts, and it just reminded me. Reading that book was like, oh yeah, this is like talking to one of my aunts. And no kidding, one of my aunts is actually named Aunt Shirley. That's
Oh,
true.
too funny.
I do have an Aunt Shirley. Uh, so that I thought was one of the great gifts of your book was just the opportunity, sort of through this book, to uh, virtually hang out with Kathy Wood. This is
Yeah,
basically like the closest we will get to uh, getting to know Kathy Wood is through this book.
yeah.
Now, uh, number three, my third question for you, Bob, here is: are there any recent or upcoming Ed Wood related events that you would like to talk about?
A week ago, there were a couple of things back to back. There was the Ed Wood screening at the Academy.
Right.
The Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences had a screening of Ed Wood, and there were over 200 people there at least to hear Rick Baker, the Oscar-winning makeup artist, talk about the makeup that he did for Martin Landau and about the movie and Tim Burton. And to see it on a huge screen in the David Geffen Theater with an appreciative audience was a gold mine. I just felt the love. And then the next night was the Plan 9 uh, comic reading
Right.
hosted by Dana Gold that had a lot of local LA comics. And I was gifted a ticket by Jeffrey Schwartz, who is a Emmy-winning documentarian. He's made documentaries on Divine, Tab Hunter,
Wow.
and others. And he's also, this is not an event, but if you're asking about upcoming possible projects, he would like to do another documentary about Ed, but he's not sure what angle to take. It could be his cross dressing, since Jeffrey, most of his subjects are of the LGBTQ uh,
Right.
arena. And I think that but I'm kind of maybe speaking out of turn, and I don't want to put words into what he may or may not be doing. He's not sure at this moment, but that is a project possible.
The Plan 9 script reading that you alluded to, there are quite a few celebrities who are involved in that.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you get a chance to meet with any of them, or like shake hands or anything like that with any of them?
No, no, I didn't. There's a really cool little documentary that somebody that was a
I
part
saw
of that
that.
ensemble. Yeah, and I did too. And that's as close as I got. Jeffrey and I left pretty much after it was done. They didn't allow pictures. It was interesting
Right.
because I didn't realize they were filming. They did not allow pictures in the audience. And I took a picture when Dana first walked out and the first actor walked out. And a guy, one of the extra people, came up and tapped me on the shoulder, and said, "No photos." And I went, "Oh, okay, whatever."
Well,
So I was surprised when that documentary, that half-hour thing came out. I went, "Well, that's great," because then I could post that in our group and let
right.
people kind of get a feel, because they had a lot of
Yeah,
the
they did.
what was going on stage.
My next question to you then: are there any of Ed Wood's movies that you personally have not seen that you know exist, but that you have not actually sat through?
I don't watch the porn.
Where do you draw the line? What is the cutoff point? Would you watch something like Orgy of the Dead? Is that too
Well,
far?
yeah, no, I've seen or do that. They screened that at the Edward uh, Woodathon. And I have a copy of it and I've watched it before, but again, it's just, I roll my eyes. I love Ed's
Hmm.
novelization of that much
Sure,
better than the film. And I'm
sure,
assuming that you might too. Necromania, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I prefer the stories to the
sure.
films. Uh, you know, a lot of saggy boobs. I did watch Fugitive Girls recently, but that's not a porn.
No, well,
But I kind of because Ed is in that, and I wanted to see and hear his parts.
what about those sort of soft core early 70s films that Ed scripted for Apostolov, things like The Cocktail Hostesses, Snow Bunnies, Beach Bunnies, Dropout Wife? Do you get into that?
I have them. To be honest with you, I haven't watched them all. I know David Ward was in a couple of those with
Yeah,
Ed,
he was.
and when we would go grocery shopping, occasionally he would bring that up. He says, "Well, I was in the cocktail hostesses, or I was in a bar scene, and I was supposed to kiss this girl, and I kissed her, and we got into it, and I got too loud, and Apostle said, 'Cut! You can't do that. Now I got to take the damn scene one more time.'" And so he got read as the riot act and stuff. I miss David.
I
You would have loved David.
and my fifth question, and I think the reason why I wanted to have you here on the show today is what do you want the public to know about Edward D. Wood Jr.? What do you want the public to know?
Boy, that he was a conflicted man, and I don't know how or why. I mean, he kept so much of himself inside and projected something different. Even though he would publicly go out as Shirley, he lived with that his entire life. Where did that start? We don't really know. I mean, everybody says
Right.
maybe his mom wanted a baby girl. We don't know that.
No,
Kathy even said that, from what I understand. Whether she got that from, I mean, Ed could have made that up to cover up his own real intention. He may have felt guilt or shame about that, so he blamed it on his mom. It's easiest to do that, or to blame it on a strict dad, but I don't think his dad was all that strict, to be honest with you. We don't
no.
know. I wish I would have met him. That's all I can say. I and as much as I love the Ed Wood film, and a lot of people have come into the Ed Wood universe because of that movie,
Right.
a lot of those people get the impression that the portrayal by Johnny Depp is Ed Wood, and it certainly is not. I think it has aspects of Ed's enthusiasm for making movies, which I think he can kind of partially blame on those old home movies that like
Right.
Conrad Brooks and those guys, with Ed running around, jumping around, and looking all excited. I think because he was on a camera and somebody was taking a movie of him, and he was just excited to be doing what he was doing. But you know, Ed seemed like the kind of guy that was the life of the party. He would have the party when he could afford the party, and he would have a party when he couldn't afford the party. And he liked to be surrounded by his friends. I mean, we get that. I know that when they were living, and that when they had their own house that they bought on the GI Bill that Ed had, that they would throw barbecues and parties in the backyard, or when they were living at the apartment with a swimming pool, they would have barbecues and their friends would come over. I have home movies, which one of these days I would love to show you.
Right.
About 10 minutes worth of silent but in color home movies that
Wow.
Kathy, it's a long story. Uh, you know, I really don't know. Ed's kind of an enigma inside of a riddle, inside of that a puzzle box, a Chinese puzzle box. And we keep discovering more about him. I mean, reading Merry-Go-Round recently, here's a porn book that you're not going to get an erection from. I don't care who you are, and all of his readings that I've done, I've never been stimulated by reading an Ed Wood passage of a sex scene, his quivering quim. That just doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. So he's putting more kind of literature, quote unquote, into his storytelling. I don't think he cares. He only cares about writing the story and telling the story and getting to the end and wrapping all the loose ends up by the time he writes the end, and that's why I like the writing. I mean, they're all kind of separate, but they're all Ed. But I really love the writing, and I haven't read all the novels, but I've read as many short stories as I have found, and that's over 100, 120 at this point. There's still about 12 or 15 that have not been published yet, including a couple that you guys kindly forwarded to
Yeah.
me, and things like The Beacon and a few other ones that I guess I should email you one or two of these so you can do another
Yeah.
article on
I,
an article on a short story that nobody's going to read for another 10 years or something, right?
well, one thing that I've discovered through this Ed Wood Wednesdays project that I've been doing since I think 2013 is that as much as I love the movies, uh, the I think the writing, the novels and the short stories and the articles give you a much more direct pipeline into Ed Wood's brain.
Yeah,
And so that's why I wanted to have you on here really was to thank you for making so much more of that material available to us than we'd ever had before.
it's
Uh,
kind of was an unspoken promise to Kathy. She never said to me, like, be sure and keep the flame of Ed alive. She never said that directly. But she knew how much this would have meant to Ed. Like the Ed Wood film, she said Ed would have loved it. Ed would have wallowed in the attention and the whole Hollywood glamour. He would have been first in line at the premiere of his own damn film. He would have been interviewed on ETV and Entertainment Tonight and all, on the Tonight Show. You would have seen Ed Wood sitting next to Johnny Carson or Jay Leno or whoever it would have been.
Well, the three books that you have curated and released have been a real gift to the Ed Wood fan community. As you know, I've reviewed every last
All
thing in
right.
them,
Thank you.
and they've provided a lot of content for my blog and a lot of hours of fascination and entertainment for me. So we wouldn't really have them without you, Bob. So I really do thank you for that. You've done your duty.
Thank you.
You've done a great service to the Ed Wood fan community. And with that, I think we can wrap up this episode of the Ed Wood Summit podcast. I thank you, Bob, for being on the show. And I hope you're having a great spooky season. Isn't it amazing now that Halloween is now a season? It used to be just a
Yeah.
day, and
Yeah.
now it's a season. And now you go into every store and there's all of this Halloween stuff everywhere. And I think Ed would have loved that we live in now a world where
Yeah. Yeah.
Halloween has exploded in popularity. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so
Thank thank
enjoy your spooky season, Bob.
thank you, Joe. I appreciate this much. Hope we get a chance to do it down the road. Thank you.
All right, bye.